In today's business segment, we're going to talk about planning for the job, and not as much as like, hey, where to fly or maybe what to fly, but when potential client calls me up, what are some of the questions, some of the research that you think we should get done before quoting the job and trying to plan for it?
Yeah, I think this is a very important time that I think gets neglected. I think a lot of the times, a lot of the people, and myself included, who are attracted to this industry are, it's cool gear, it's fun stuff, it's exciting, you're on the cutting edge of technology. And we don't really think about the business side of things, but it's so important. That first phone call, or in the 2, 3, 4, half dozen phone calls after that, are very important before you step foot on set.
Yep.
And I think knowing what to ask is very important. Knowing, how to quote. Obviously, every job is different, and you want to know as much information before you get on set, so you can be prepared. And you can quote them. So yeah, we can talk a little about the questions.
Yep.
The most recent job I did a couple days ago, I got a call from someone who had several locations that they wanted to film. It was a client that hadn't hired anyone before to do drones. It was actually a non-production. It was for a construction company, and they didn't really know anything about the video industry and how everything works and all that stuff, or what to expect. So I think being able to understand, kind of judge, okay, this person calling, they're not a producer from a well-known established production company. They're a person who wants to get some beautiful aerials, right? And that's all they know. So being able to change your verbiage, change all this stuff, identify who there is pretty important.
So how do you, being able to identify or change your verbiage, how do you learn this? There's no guide, really. I mean, the way I learned it is kind of going through my motions with all these calls and learning one by one, sometimes by painful mistakes, actually.
One of the most important, I think, questions that I ask, and not only in drone video and photography, a lot of times when a director will call me and say, hey, I have an idea for a project, and we're starting to talk about it, I'll say, do you have any examples of existing projects that we could use for references? What are you trying to emulate so that I could take a peek at it and see what you're trying to go for?
That's a great question. So whether there is already something that's in their existing portfolio or something that they saw out there that they think it's a good idea, they want to,
because they may have a hard time putting into words, but if they see if they can send you a couple of links, be like, I want this shot, second 22 to 27, it's a beautiful shot. I kind of want to get that. Then I can say, okay, I know how to get that, or this is how we should accomplish it. So that's one thing. I'll try to get as much information. What are we filming? Are we part of a larger set? Are you just a non-video production company and you're just trying to get, maybe you're a realtor and you're calling me and you want some aerials of a house, right? Or you want to do...
Or you're a construction company. So you can ask, hey, do you have any competitor's site or some competitor's video that you've seen that you like? Just to kind of give me an idea. It's a good question.
Exactly. So trying to figure out what the references are, trying to see what are we filming. You know?
I also asked them, one of the first questions is, have you worked with drones before?
That's a great question.
Yeah, because that steers the conversation one way or the other. If they worked with the drones before, then you can ask them, hey, what was your experience? What did you use? Are you looking to use something along the same lines?
That's actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that's a very good initial question, because that'll guide every question after that. If they haven't done drones before, you'll know, okay, I have to be kind of broad with my questions. I have to ask the right questions. If they have worked with drones before, then you can kind of get a little more in the weeds and a little more specific about your questions.
If they have, then I ask them, what was your experience with it? What did you use? Who did you use? Why are you calling me and not that guy?
Right. Yep.
And that's not to be like mean or to be bashing someone, but that's usually, if they worked with the drones before and they're calling you and you've never really interacted with that person, there's got to be a reason why the person before, why they're not calling them. So it's important.
And you want to make
know
sure that
that you can deliver
based on what they weren't getting from the last vendor.
Exactly. And that could be as easy as maybe using a different piece of equipment, or it can be as difficult as saying, yeah, I can't really do that either because it's illegal and you won't find somebody in the right mind to do this.
I'm sure you get them all the time. I get people asking to do stuff. And
we need a drone shot from Times Square.
Oh, yeah. It's like at night and blah, blah. Yeah,
how much money do you have?
Yeah, right.
I'm sure I can sneak one. So and that actually kind of steers the conversation toward what should be next. So once we have that established, what about equipment? How do you talk to them about equipment? Is it based on what they're looking to do with them, or based on the distribution? Where are they planning to show this, or what they're trying to match it to? What's the most important things that you look for when determining the equipment to work with?
Yeah, I think you kind of talked about it. Yeah, is this something that's going to be on a movie screen, or is this something that's going to be online? Is this something that's going to be in the background of your website, kind of like a looping video? Is this part of a short film? Are we using nothing but drone footage, or are we cutting into an existing project? If it is being cut into an existing project, my next question would be, what are you guys shooting on? When are you shooting? All that information is just really great to know.
Why is it important to know what other cameras are being used on the set if it's that kind of shoot?
A lot of times I think that if you know what is being used for the sort of A footage, the A roll, right? If you know what their primary camera is being used, you'll be able to know if you have more than one machine in your arsenal, you'll be able to know, okay, this camera, this drone, this setup, this would be a good fit to match it.
Gotcha.
Personally, with me, I have the Inspire 2, and I think we're living in a great time now for drones that if you have an Inspire 2, I would say a lot of jobs kind of get funneled into there. But there are certain times where I have either turned it down or passed it on to someone else because they're asking me to do something that I just don't have sort of the capabilities, or sometimes I don't
like beyond your comfort level.
Exactly.
Okay. So like if somebody's asking you to fly, I don't know, 2 feet over the water, chasing a surfer on the top of a 20-foot wave, then cool. How about all right, so it's about a distribution. If it's something that only goes online, or it's not really, it's maybe matched with something that's shot on SLRs or Micro Four Thirds, then maybe some of the smaller units, even Phantoms, could be appropriate if they're just looking for quick B-roll shots. But when do you determine whether to use a single or two operator? What's your logic behind?
Yeah, I a lot of the times I'll tell them straight up. I say, look, by default, I'm going to go ahead and quote you for a 2-man operation. And the way we bill it is we'll give them a price, but we'll kind of break it down so there's some transparency that they know what they're paying for. So they're paying for a pilot, a camera operator, and the drone rental, the drone package. Okay. And I'll tell them we're going to be coming with 2 guys, but there is an option that we can do with 1. I'll kind of educate them on why they probably want a 2-man.
2 guys.
2 guys. Yeah, it's just because you're able to get slightly more complex shots. You're able to have one person really focus on the exact precise framing of a shot, which a lot of times when you're just focused on piloting, your main focus is not crashing and trying to fly the shot. And it's like we can't do 2 things at once, right? So it's like we're constantly toggling back between framing and then piloting, piloting. We're able to get a way more precise shot. And I think if you're able to educate them and explain to them, they'll be like, oh, okay, I understand that. Sometimes, they'll be like, look, it's very simple. I just need to get it up in the air and I just need to get a shot. In the framing, it's not 100% that crucial. Yeah. And so then I'll be like, okay, well then maybe we can do something where a pilot can come out. And,
or a photography. If you're not doing video, then obviously single operator is fine. Yep. Now with the 2, the way I explain it, you're right, is the complexity of it. So every time you're trying to track something, any moving object, you're by default two operator.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, you're right, it's much easier to have. It's not that the two operator makes it easier. The way I explain it to people, it lets us push the boundaries of what's possible just a little further. Because there are some specific things that go into doing two operator. Now you have two guys trying to put the camera in the same spot, so they kind of have to coordinate it.
Yeah, yeah. And Joe and I would always say it's like a dance. You know?
It is. It's choreographed.
The pilot and the camera operator really have to be in sync, and we have to talk about what terms we're using, and we have to be kind of on the same page, because it really is a dance. And like you said, it's you're kind of able to do more complex stuff, but you really have to be on the same page.
You can get more. Totally. Yeah. So you said you break down the prices into the pilot part, the camera operator part, the equipment part. It's more transparent. There is some place for negotiations. How about time segments? How do you determine how long the job's gonna take? So there's usual like standard half day rates. Is it?
So I know. Everyone's different, and I'm not saying that there's a right answer or wrong answer. I guess the only wrong answer would be is if you're giving away your services, guys, which you don't do, right?
For experience.
Well, in terms of like giving away, I mean like just so cheap, you're going out and you're doing all this stuff, right? But even then, I know, some people just want experience, and they may not feel like they're at the level where they can command the high prices.
I don't think it's a good idea to be getting experience on a jobs, like a real jobs.
Right,
because I always try to, and depending on what you do, but you still have all the liability, right? So if you're
for drone stuff, it's a little different, right, than if you're doing another, because it's dangerous, right?
You know, so hey, if somebody's looking for someone for experience, now that whoever's producing this is acknowledging they're looking for someone who's learning, knowingly. Whoever's committing to do this on a drone side, they may not realize. They may be like, okay, I'm happy I get to do this. They may not realize the liability in this. And it's, especially in the US, I mean, that's one way I try to discourage people from doing that. That learning experience may be a whole different thing than what you're looking for.
But
back to that.
Back to that. I think a lot of times when you get a phone call, it's, how much is it going to be for me to do this? I'm going to go into all the questions that we were talking about before, but then I'll also ask them, are you guys on a 10 or 12-hour day? Is this something that you guys will need us, right when your production starts, or is this something that you just want to get a sunset shot later? Because all this stuff will have impacts. Going on about the half day and full day, a lot of people are different. There's still like a lot of debate about that. But I think that we have the mantra, if you take a half day, you're potentially turning down a full day. So it's a lot of times when people call me and they'll be like, hey, we just need you for a shot. Can you do something for a half day? Sometimes I'll be blunt with them and I say, if I do half day, I'm going to be turning down, full day rates. So every company or every person has to decide for themselves. Maybe if you're just trying to get experience in terms of your business, or you're trying to get more clients, I think maybe you would be more inclined to do a half day just to, make that relationship and to make it work for them. Yeah. But a lot of times, I find that if you have a good Rolodex of clients or something, you're probably more apt to turn it down, just because I've been in plenty of situations where, you do a half day, and then the next day someone says, "Oh, I've got, a full day that day." And
now you committed
and
to
now
a
you're already
half a
committed
day,
to the half day. So I'll explain to them, and they'll be like, "Yeah, that is true."
Now, what about scouting? When do you think it's important to go out and check the location out beforehand, before you're committing to the shoot? Do you have any, when it comes to drone shoots, actually?
Yeah, I would say I tend to, scouting is very important. Obviously, every shoot, if budgets weren't a thing, like we would scout every single shoot, right? But unfortunately, scouting is expensive because you're paying for people's time. I think sometimes it is necessary. You'll know whether it's necessary or not based on some of the questions that you have asked before. But I think right off the bat for drone stuff, you're talking about flying something. So I would say, okay, why don't you email me your addresses? Give me a list of all the places that you want to fly. And then real easy, I'll just go on Google Maps, pop them in. Pre-scout online. And I'll just say, okay, interesting. This is located in Times Square. Or, this is great. This is in the middle of a field, no airports around. And you can kind of get an idea of like, okay, the level of risk is much lower, or this looks like we're in a pretty heavily suburban area with a lot of houses, or so then you can start answering a lot of the questions that way.
A lot of whether you can actually fly it before you're committing to it, because there's nothing worse than showing up on a job, figuring out that, oh yeah, this is right next to an airport, I really can't do it right now, or any of that. So yeah, pre-scouting, always look at the maps. You're right, a couple of reasons. Well, one reason being, hey, what kind of airspace, what kind of environment do I have to work with? Second thing is light. How does the light travel? How does the sun travel? How does this work? You know what I found really helpful now, actually? Google Maps. Did you see their 3D? On like a Google Chrome, you can switch to the 3D view on the cities, right? So if somebody wants a shot of a building or a bridge in a city, I can literally go to Google Maps 3D and I can just plan my shot. What am I looking at? What my background is? What my backdrop is? That's very useful for tool. But as much as I can, I mean, obviously I wouldn't go out for the run-of-the-mill jobs, construction, real estate. Even though like construction, if it's like a periodical pictures, that first time you're going out, you're already setting up your paths if you're using Litchi and all that. So that is always, that's kind of given. But for the regular film shoots, as long as they're local to us and they're not somewhere in St. Lucia or further, I prefer to go out and just seeing what we have to deal with. And you're right, it takes time sometimes. And if budgets weren't a thing, we would always be scouting. But
and another thing I try to tell them on these pre-pro calls, these pre-production calls is, we're a service that, there's a lot of variables that go into. We have weather, we have airports. We have all these variables and I think you have to let the production know that you guys as a production have to know that you have to be flexible with because it's not a very binary thing. There's a lot of different things that could I don't say go wrong, but it could affect it, or we may have to postpone it. So
okay. So do you make them aware of it? Do you tell them, hey, pick a date, but also pick a rain date? Or
so, and this is something that I'll share with that I do. I'm not saying everyone should do it, but for like the past job, the client wanted to do it on a Monday, and I said, okay, it was like 2 weeks before the shoot. But we picked a Monday. It's okay. We're in New England. I don't know what the weather's going to do. Why don't we keep looking at the weather, and as we get closer, we'll figure it out. And I tell them that, again, this is my policy. I'm not saying that anyone else should do it, but I'll tell them, I realize that we have a lot of variables, and I'm going to work with you if we have some bad weather, and we'll be in communication. I'll work with you on potentially working out another date. I know some people are a little more black and white, like, look, they booked us for there, and if it's bad weather, we're going to get paid no matter what because they're booking our time. But for me, I'll kind of work with them and say, look, based on what my availability is and what yours, we'll try to like make sure the shoot.
It pays off in the end if they see that you care like that. All right, what else would you recommend to survey or plan, or when you're talking to the customers or the potential clients?
I guess lastly, knock on wood, cross your fingers that you don't have any negative experiences, but we are talking about business transactions here. So I think having a contract is pretty smart. Once you guys talk about what you want to do, just put it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be something simple, but just putting something in writing, like you, the client, are going to pay X amount of dollars. We're going to do it on this day, and you can get as complicated as you want, but just something in writing, I think, kind of helps.
State your deliverables too. What are you gonna exactly what formats and all that?
Also,
I found that's important.
Yeah, formats are great. Also, something too, if you're not dealing with a production with an existing set, something that can get not thought of on their end is how they're gonna get the footage. Are they gonna give you a laptop? Are they gonna have like a hard drive there? Are luckily I bring a laptop with me just to, but I'll tell them, like, why don't you bring a hard drive to set, or, to us. And
well, it's going to be, if you look at, say, Inspire 2 with the SSD drive there, right? I mean, those 500 gigs, you blow through it really quick in ProRes. So we had this situation where, and I do try to warn people, and I still run into folks that are like, we don't have enough hard drive for this. Even though you specifically, you talk them through it. And it was funny, they were like, oh, can we buy one of those drives from you? I'm like, yeah, it's $800. They're like, no. I'm like, yeah.
Smart thing would too, I know some production companies that kind of do this is, or maybe it was an aerial company, I can't remember who it was, but they would keep, just pre-packaged some, 1 TB or 2 TB
Small drives.
Western Digital hard drives in the box, and they'd be like, "Oh, you guys ran out of storage?
There
Buy
you
it
go.
from us."
$50, $60
yeah, just
whatever
upcharge
they are.
another 10%, whatever, and
Yeah.
that's it. And
That is a good idea. Now, what about, do you talk to the editors too? Like, do you ask them, hey, so since I'm not gonna be editing, I'm gonna be handing this over. Who's gonna be editing this? Are they gonna understand how to work? Because I've had it happen when I shot something flat.
Oh,
And they're like, oh, this is all milky. It's useless. How do
Exactly.
you prevent that? At which point do you
so
talk about
I'll
it?
try to find out in a pre-pro call, like who's touching this footage after. And I quickly, for this last job, this construction job, I quickly realized that there wasn't really going to be an editor,
No touch-ups,
or like
yeah.
it was, they just wanted to pull clips and
Yeah.
put them on their website. And so I was like, interesting. All right, I'm not going to shoot log.
Yeah.
I'm going to just shoot Rec 709 or the regular
color,
the
yeah.
color space, and I'll try to nail my exposure perfectly. And
So you don't have to do much to it in a post. All right. So,
Yeah.
but you kind of want to know it coming into it.
Yeah, you want to know
if it's
coming in
gone.
because you don't want to be in a position where you have to explain, okay, this is shot log, it's flatter, you got to bring the colors back and
Yeah.
go online, use this lookup table. And
I had to do it like whenever I had that problem, and it's happened to me more than once. Sadly, as much as I try not to, I had to just pull it in a Final Cut and grade it for them before sending it out, because it wasn't. Even then, sometimes most people do a good job editing, but I discovered, and like we learn our cameras, we learn our workflows. I sometimes feel bad because I know that the footage that we handed over could have looked so much better in a final if it was just graded right to its full potential.
And that's not just for aerials. That's like
Yeah.
for every,
of course.
For traditional filming too. I mean, the phrase, let's bake it in, just
Yeah.
because you don't want to leave it to chance in post that they'll mess it up or
But
something.
yeah. All right. Well,
It's a pretty good combo. We talked a lot about some good stuff.
we did cover a lot actually. So that's hopefully it helps these guys plan a little, answer some of those questions. I wish we could make it a little easier for them, but I think a lot of it is by experience.
Yep.
We've all learned a lot. We've lost some. And it's just a part of the game. I wish I could tell them it gets easier, but it doesn't. There's always something new and something challenging. All right.
Yep.
Thank you very much, John. I
appreciate it.
really appreciate it.